Chapter 1. In the open study room, there were all kinds of exquisite and expensive furnishings. On the zither table, there was a seemingly simple yet luxurious zither. On the side, there was an incense burner that emitted a fragrance. It was light and not strong, but it made people feel that it smelled particularly good. On one side, there was a chaise lounge. On the chaise lounge, there were 2 books scattered. One of them was flipped open and turned upside down on the chaise lounge. On the cover, there were 3 words, Chuan Fong Fu. Looking at the treasure pavilion again, after a closer look, it really made people suck in a breath of cold air. Each and every item could be said to be the best. What was even rarer was that they were all exquisite beyond compare. Any one of them was worth at least 1,000 gold. Behind the treasure pavilion, the most attractive thing was not the various rare books that were placed on the bookshelves, nor was it the famous calligraphy and paintings that were hung on the wall. Instead, it was the man who was sitting at the large red sandalwood table, seriously writing something. The 6th Prince, Jin Qin Wang, Li Hongyuan. Black brocade clothes embroidered with dark patterns. The collar and cuffs were flamboyant and unbridled blood red. Especially the purplish-black pattern, it made people feel strange and inexplicable. They were unwilling to look at it more. However, that extraordinarily handsome face was like the most perfect work that the best sculptor had spent countless painstaking efforts to carve out. The cold eyebrows did not detract from his uniqueness. Only that pair of eyes that seemed to have been crafted by gods, because of the dark color of his pupils, seemed to clearly show that he was gloomy and not easy to get close to. Suddenly, there was a light knock on the door. "Enter." Hearing the voice that made people feel numb, but because of the coldness and ruthlessness inside, they did not dare to have any ripples. A man in black silently came in, kneeled on one knee, and respectfully said, "Master, Miss Luo has arrived in the capital." The hand that was writing unhurriedly paused. In the span of a dozen breaths, it was as if it was fixed and did not have any reaction. The pen that was just dipped in ink, following this pause, a drop of ink dripped down and fell on the paper. The paper that was about to be finished was thus wasted. Li Hongyuan put down the pen in his hand and slowly raised it up, covering the place where his heart was. His heartbeat was like a drum. His heart, which had always been beating steadily, would not slow down or speed up no matter who it was. Every time he heard news about her, it would involuntarily speed up. It was no longer under his control. He did not want to control it. He did not want to control it. Amidst the rapid throbbing, there were also waves of sharp pain. He could not help but lower his head and let out a low moan that seemed to be both painful and joyful. It was not a pleasant feeling, but he enjoyed it very much. The kneeling man lowered his head and held his breath. He almost didn't dare to breathe. He had been by his master's side for more than a day or 2. At this moment, he couldn't make the slightest sound. Otherwise, the thought of the consequences made the blood in his body turn cold. But Master's voice really made her want to die. "Where are you?" She seemed to have regained her calm. "We will reach the Luo residence in about an hour. Prepare the car." "Yes." He respectfully replied and got up to leave. When he reached the door, he could not maintain his calm and showed a bit of embarrassment. Outside the door, Eunuch Mu glanced at the number 1 shadow guard by his master's side with pity. Master would only show real emotional fluctuations when it was related to Miss Luo. It was not an act to deal with others. It was reasonable to say that at this time, Master would be affected by human emotions and would be easier to get close to. However, the truth was the opposite. Master at this time was the strangest, most terrifying, and most frightening. The shadow guard in black calmed down and said with a deadpan face, "Master wants to use the carriage." Eunuch Mu nodded and turned to prepare. On the other side, because the masters who stayed in Guangyu and Prefecture's Qi and Prefecture were all going to the capital together, there were a lot of things accompanying them. A row of carriages and boxes, one could not see the end of it at a glance. It attracted many passers-by to stop and talk about it. They were all curious about which noble family this was. "Miss, the capital is really as lively and luxurious as those storytellers said." A young girl dressed as a maidservant lifted the corner of the curtain and peeked out from the gap. She looked at the scenery outside and said excitedly. A hand reached out and slapped the back of the maidservant's hand, reprimanding her in a low voice. "Qingju, now that we're in the capital, it's not like Qi and Prefecture. How can you be so rash? If people see you, they will only say that Miss is not dignified and even say that the Luo family is not good. Have you thought of the consequences?" The voice was even a bit cold. Qingju touched the back of her hand that was red from the slap and felt a bit wronged. "Sister Zhu, I won't dare to do it again." On the other hand, the woman who was leaning on the big pillow was surnamed Luo and given name Jingwan. Although she was not a peerless beauty, her skin was white and flawless. It was pleasing to the eye and made people envious. It was just that her complexion was a bit sickly and pale. She was also thin, so it was inevitable that she would lose some of her beauty. Hearing this, she opened her beautiful eyes and laughed. "Qingju, it's not that serious." She then got up slightly and reached out to stroke Qingju's head as if she was comforting a child. "Don't be anxious. I'm afraid that you won't leave the capital in the future. There's plenty of time to take a look." "Miss." Qingju looked at her miss with a bit of anger and embarrassment. Miss was clearly younger than her by a year, but in front of her, she always acted like a child and was always teased by her like a child. Jingwan laughed out loud, but when she thought of her current situation, she hurriedly covered her mouth with a handkerchief, but the teasing in her eyes was still there. Qingju looked on from the side and felt helpless. Qingju's temperament was mostly due to Mississippi. And the old madam of the family also doted on Miss as if she was her own flesh and blood. Even the etiquette instructor couldn't say much. Moreover, Miss had a good temperament and was gentle and considerate. She also had a bit of straightforwardness that other young ladies didn't have. In Qi and Prefecture, who knew how many madams and madams liked her? Unfortunately, the old madam didn't like the children and grandchildren of those families. But very quickly, Jingwan's smile faded, and she felt a bit nauseous. She was really helpless when it came to carriage sickness. Qingju hurriedly took out a plum from a small drawer at the side and handed one to her. "Miss, bear with it a little longer. We'll be there soon." Jingwan put the plum in her mouth. "I'm fine." Then she closed her eyes and pretended to sleep. The two maidservants saw her like this and really felt sorry for her. Miss had always been healthy. According to the old madam, even when she was young, she rarely fell ill. They didn't expect that after sitting in the carriage for so long, she would be so dizzy. In the first 10 days, she vomited until her intestines turned over and her stomach turned. Her whole body quickly lost weight, which scared them to death. They slowed down the journey again and again. Later on, it was better to take a boat. But after entering the capital for half a day, the carriage looked uncomfortable again. The sound outside gradually faded. They should be arriving soon. Sure enough, not long after, the carriage stopped. Soon, Jingwan's wet nurse's voice came from outside. "Miss, we've arrived." The curtain in front of the carriage door was lifted. The wet nurse, the tutor, and the other two maidservants, Qing Mei and Qing Lan, were waiting outside. Every time they sat in the carriage, the 6 of them took turns to serve Jingwan. Jingwan was supported and stepped down on a small stool. The moment she landed, she felt at ease. Finally, she didn't have to suffer anymore. She touched her chest. Wan, come here and let grandmother take a look. Madame Luo stood beside the carriage, leaving her son, daughter-in-law, grandson and granddaughter in front of her, and waved to Jingwan with a distressed face. It made the people who were ready to pay their respects to show their filial piety unable to do so. They were very embarrassed. Jingwan hurriedly stepped forward and held Madame Luo's hand. Grandmother. Look at your little face. Are you still uncomfortable? Madame Luo touched her face. Jingwan pursed her lips and smiled. Grandmother, don't worry. I'm fine. Aren't we already home? After a few days of rest, I'm sure I'll be white and fat again. You have to take good care of yourself. Madame Luo turned her head and said to her eldest daughter-in-law, Madame Luo, send more nourishing food like bird's nest to Wan. This child has suffered a lot along the way. Yes, mother, don't worry. When I received the letter, I knew that the third daughter had suffered along the way. I've already prepared the things. Madame Wang responded properly and looked at Jingwan with affection and distress. Yes, I'm relieved when you do things. Madame Luo nodded and responded lightly. Chapter 2. After that, the people at the door saluted. Because Jingwan's grandfather and eldest uncle were not on vacation, they were busy with official matters at the yamen. Of course, even if grandfather was at home, he would not come out to welcome them. At a glance, the people from the first branch, second branch, and third branch were all present. With the addition of the servants, it was a dark mass. Jingwan felt dizzy just looking at it. Then, there was also fourth uncle's family who came to the capital with them. It would be lively in the future. Jingwan greeted the elders. Although these people were all smiling, many of them were definitely unhappy, especially the cousins of the same generation. Because of her, they had to spend at least half a month on the journey. It was obvious how much old Madame doted on her. After all, fourth uncle's youngest son and old Madame's youngest grandson had been under old Madame's watch since birth, but they were not as doted on as her. In this family, apart from grandfather Luo Peishan, old Madame had the highest status. It went without saying what it meant to be doted on by her. Especially in the grandchildren's generation, several of whom were about to get married. Jingwan looked at her parents, whom she hadn't seen for 3 years. They were almost the same as 3 years ago. Father Luo Rongyan was still indifferent, and Mother Madame Zhang was still beautiful and untainted by worldly affairs. To be honest, the husband and wife were a good match. They were both people who treated money like dirt and pursued romance. It was a blessing to be able to live like this for the rest of their lives. It was just that the children had to work harder. She didn't mind, but as for the rest, she still had her brother to support her. Looking at her mother, who was about to cry because of her illness, Jingwan could only smile and comfort her. Mother, you must be tired from the journey. Go in and have a good rest. We can talk about other things later, okay? She stepped forward. Jingwan and Luo Rongyan looked at each other, reached a tacit understanding between father and daughter, and consciously took a step back. Old Madame saw her second daughter-in-law's reaction and felt helpless. She also missed her children and grandchildren, so it was good to let them talk first. So she took her second son's hand and said, Wan, go back with your mother first. You don't have to come over. You can pay respects to your grandfather tonight. After Jingwan agreed, they walked into the mansion and asked about the situation in the capital. The others followed closely behind. Madame Zhang hurriedly stepped forward and touched and looked at Jingwan. She asked a series of questions from her head to her heels. Madame Zhang held Jingwan's bony hand and thought of her fair and tender daughter when she left Qi and Manor 3 years ago. She couldn't hold it in anymore and tears rolled down her face like a broken string of beads. Jingwan had been enduring the discomfort and patiently answering her every question, but now, she sighed helplessly in her heart. "Mother, I'm really fine. I'll be fine in a few days. Don't cry, okay?" While wiping her tears with a handkerchief, she winked at her brother. But the bastard who stayed behind for her sister shrugged his shoulders at her, indicating that there was nothing he could do. However, this interaction made the estrangement that had formed between the siblings over the past 3 years disappear without a trace. "Foreign, don't cry. If you continue crying, third young miss will feel uncomfortable and her body will be even more uncomfortable. Don't you think so? The most important thing now is to let third young miss rest." A seemingly gentle and dignified woman gently advised from the side. When Jingwan heard this, she glanced at her. She had never seen her before. She was standing behind her mother and had a matronly hairstyle. In addition, there was her father's concubine next to her. Her status was self-evident. She was probably married in the past 3 years. But who was she acting like? She was more like a legitimate wife than her mother. Since her mother couldn't hold it up, then as a concubine, you should obediently hide. Madame Zhang unconsciously stroked her stomach, but Jingwan didn't say anything. Right. Madame Zhang hurriedly wiped her tears. Wan, mother won't say any more. Let's go back first. Mother has already decorated your courtyard. Take a look. If there's anything you don't like, tell mother and I'll change it for you. Mother decorated it. There's nothing bad about it. Jingwan said with a smile. Just as she was about to enter the Luofu, she seemed to feel something and looked back. Diagonally across the road, under a crooked tree, there was a carriage covered in green cloth. There was no special symbol on it. Because of the shade of the tree, she could only vaguely see that the curtain seemed to be half-hanging. As for the situation inside the carriage, she couldn't see it all. There wasn't even a shadow outside the carriage. Could it be that there was someone in the carriage? Was someone watching her? It was most likely an illusion. From the moment Jingwan came down from the carriage to the moment she entered the Luofu, Li Hongyuan stared at her without blinking. He used all the strength in his body to prevent himself from rushing over the moment she appeared, snatching her in front of everyone in the Luofu, and then crushing her into his flesh and blood. Wan. He repeatedly warned himself that it was still far from the time. There would be a day when he would officially marry her and make her completely belong to him. And he, who was behind the carriage, heard his master's whispers and faintly smelled the faint smell of blood in the carriage. It was very inconceivable. He had followed his master for 6 years. Although there was blood on his master's body countless times, it wasn't his. He didn't even see a scratch on his master's skin. Now, he just saw that Miss Luo and he hurt himself. And send the prepared things over. Li Hongyuan's voice was hoarse and tired after using all his strength. And he was shocked again and again. That Miss Luo wasn't some national beauty. As far as he knew, that Miss Luo came to the capital for the first time. Since his master was born, he had never left the imperial city. Why was his master's obsession with her so deep? No, it wasn't just an obsession. It was simply a demonic barrier. There must be a secret that no one knew about. It wasn't something that they could find out. Stopping all thoughts and strictly adhering to one's duty was the right way. Master had always been fair in his rewards and punishments. If you overstepped even a little bit, you would definitely regret walking in this world. And if it was related to Miss Luo, if you attempted to pry into his inner secrets, it would be better to die than to live. Yes. Ever since Miss Luo left Qianfu and started to feel unwell, Master had received an incomparably detailed message from the shadow guards. During that time, Master was particularly violent. The more details he knew, the worse his mood would be. However, if the shadow guards dared to leave out even a little bit, they would have to be prepared to go to the Yellow Springs. In the eyes of these people who served him closely, it was simply self-abuse. On the surface, everyone was affected by him. Once this person went crazy, even if it was those princes and princesses, which one of them didn't retreat to some extent. Even the emperor had endless headaches and made him scram far away. If there was no reason, don't enter the imperial palace, not to mention secretly. In fact, the most miserable was still the Ministry of Works. Jin Qinhuang's carriage was uncomfortable and requested them to modify the carriage. After so long, there was no progress and he almost smashed the entire Ministry of Works. Meeting such a demon king, they could only pray for their own good fortune. Collecting countless things that could alleviate Miss Luo's discomfort, turning around 10 or 8 corners, they had to send things to her. Now, they could naturally use the same method to send the best nourishment over. Nobody would know. Even if someone went to investigate, they wouldn't be able to find any traces of deliberate actions from beginning to end. Make proper arrangements in Luo Fu. Don't give the matter of Wan to that stupid woman, Zhangshi. Yes. And Yi felt powerless. According to Master's current attitude, that stupid woman would definitely become Master's mother-in-law. Was it really good to talk about your future mother-in-law like this? She just didn't let your sweetheart rest in time. Return to the Fu. Yes. Quietly arriving at Jinwang Fu, Li Hongyuan came down from the carriage, prepare water, bathing and changing clothes. Mu Gonggong hurriedly ordered people to prepare. Upon closer inspection, one would find that his clothes were almost soaked with sweat, and there was a bit of blood at the corner of his mouth that hadn't been wiped clean. Silently and quickly preparing everything, Mu Gonggong walked to the door and closed it. He only glanced at Yi and quickly moved his line of sight away, without the slightest intention of asking. Chapter 3. Jingwan was not in the mood to look at her new territory. She washed up, took off her hair ornaments, changed her clothes, and went to bed to rest. She needed to have enough energy to deal with what might happen next. After waking up, Jingwan's energy was back. She only looked thin and not sick. She drank a bowl of thick blood bird's nest porridge and changed her clothes. The color was not very fresh, but Jingwan was able to keep it down. She combed her hair into a simple bun and inserted a pair of hairpins. The hairpins were very delicate, as thin as a cicada's wings, and as light as the wings. Jingwan led the etiquette instructor and Qing Zhu through a small door and entered her parents' courtyard. The courtyard she lived in now was very close to her parents' courtyard, so it was reserved for her 3 years ago. Jingwan took a look at the courtyard. It really lived up to its name, Falling Plum House. Plum trees could be seen everywhere in different postures. It was a pity that the winter plum blossoms had withered, and there were no spring plum blossoms in the courtyard, so she could not see their beauty. However, in her previous life, Jingwan's main focus was flowers. She only needed to look at the trees to know what kind of plum blossoms were. According to the color, there were red plum blossoms, yellow plum blossoms, white plum blossoms, and a few rare green plum blossoms. For this place, these were already very rare. Especially rare treasures were really hard to come by. Third young lady, you're here. Master and Madam are waiting for you. The maidservant politely lifted the curtain. Although it was the first time she saw her, her appearance was very familiar, and she was full of smiles. In this life, since she was born, she had been living in this kind of environment. No matter how uncomfortable she was, she had already adapted. Jingwan nodded and walked in unhurriedly. There were quite a lot of people. Most likely, everyone in the second branch, except for her older brother, was present. Because of her arrival, the original chatter and laughter suddenly stopped, and they all looked at her. Jingwan's expression did not change. She directly knelt in front of Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang. Madame Zhang originally wanted to support her, but after a pause, she sat back down. Jingwan respectfully kowtowed. I haven't been able to serve father and mother for several years. It's your daughter's fault for not being filial. Luo Rongyan, who was originally calm, couldn't sit still anymore. He even helped Jingwan up before Zhang Shi did. My son is serving old madam to fulfill filial piety for his parents. How could he be unfilial? Old madam also said that her health has been improving over the past few years. My son has contributed greatly to this. Although they were father and daughter, Jingwan had already grown up. After Luo Rongyan helped her up, he naturally let go of her hand. Looking at his slender and elegant eldest daughter, he felt rather emotional. It was as if it was only yesterday that he had hugged and teased her. Isn't it only right to be filial to your grandmother? How can you talk about merits? I wonder how father and mother have been these years. She's fine, she's fine. Mrs. Zhang didn't care about anything else. She pulled Jingwan to her side and sat down with her. There's finally some color in your little face. Jingwan smiled. Her mother, Mrs. Zhang, sometimes really made people speechless. Although she couldn't deny that she was a good mother, her kindness often didn't reach the point. When she shouldn't, she might be overflowing with motherly love. When she should be, she might not be in the right state. She would caress her hand as if she was comforting her and not say much about her own body. Younger brothers and sisters, you've all grown up. This time, I brought some things to the capital. Once I've finished arranging them, I'll have someone send them to you. If you don't like them, just tell me. I'll definitely give you something you like. Who wouldn't like something given by third older sister? The 7 or 8-year-old girl said with a smile. In addition to her biological brother, Luo Jingbua, who ranked second among all the brothers, Jingwan also had 2 sisters and 1 younger brother. Luo Jingyu ranked 5th among the sisters, Luo Jingwei ranked 9th, and Luo Jingming ranked 6th among the brothers. They were 13, 7, and 11 years old respectively. The 2 sisters were born from the same mother, concubine Ji, a concubine taken in from outside. The younger brother's birth mother was concubine Ping, a servant who accompanied Mrs. Zhang when she married. The remaining 2 only thanked her and didn't say anything else. 9th younger sister's mouth is getting sweeter. Concubine Ji taught you well. Concubine Ji hurriedly got up and said humbly, this concubine doesn't dare to claim credit. It's all because Madam taught me well. Jingwan smiled noncommittally and didn't say anything else. She turned to the 3rd concubine and said, I didn't know that our 2nd branch had half a master. Luo Rongyan coughed awkwardly. He always knew that his daughter didn't like concubines. She never said it out of consideration for him as her father, but sometimes it was quite obvious. In fact, he wasn't a lecherous person. However, this was a gift from above, so he couldn't refuse it. This is concubine Bai, who advanced a year ago. Jingwan nodded and said, Mother, daughter sees that concubine Bai's clothes are a bit old and her jewelry is a bit plain. Concubine Bai doesn't look much older than daughter and is in the prime of her life. She should dress up prettily and be delicate. That way, everyone will be happy to see her, right? Give concubine Bai a few more bolts of beautiful satin. Father shouldn't favor one and discriminate against the other. Our family doesn't lack that bit of money. She glanced at the other 2 concubines. As a man, Luo Rongyan was obviously a bit confused. They hadn't seen each other for 3 years. Did Wan's personality change? Madame Zhang looked at concubine Bai and nodded in realization. I was wondering why concubine Bai looked a bit awkward. Wan really has good taste. Feitsue, go to my storeroom and pick out a few bolts of brighter satin for concubine Bai. Concubine Ji and concubine Pink should also send 2 bolts. Since Madame Zhang said so, the three concubines naturally hurriedly got up and thanked her. As for concubine Ji, who had always been fighting with concubine Bai, not only did she not feel unhappy because Madame Bai received more satin, she was smiling on the surface and her heart was even more carefree. She didn't need to look to know what Madame Bai looked like. Madame didn't care about matters, but she always had a stable position in Luo Rongyan's heart. That concubine Ping, even if she gave birth to a son, she was still a wooden person. As such, she felt that she was someone who knew how to make trouble. As long as she didn't go overboard, her position in the second branch wasn't low. However, ever since Madame Bai came, relying on her youth and beauty, not only did she want to fight for Luo Rongyan's favor, she even wanted to suppress Madame Zhang. She carried the attitude of a virtuous wife and mother. Those who didn't know would think that she was the legitimate madam of the second branch. Madame Zhang might not have noticed, or perhaps she didn't care. However, the third young lady was different. The third young lady gained wisdom early and was smart from a young age. She was steady, neither arrogant nor rash. Most of the time, she was like a little adult. Although she didn't like them concubines, she never made things difficult for them. If they didn't touch her bottom line, she would be too lazy to pay attention to you. She was a little cold to her younger brothers and sisters, but she was never harsh. When outside, she even protected them. Madame Bai's behavior obviously made her angry. The third young lady had a good temper and treated people kindly, but when it came to dealing with someone, she was not the least bit careless. She didn't think that Madame Bai had the ability to go against the third young lady. Concubine Bai's hands were tightly clenched into fists in her sleeves. She had heard a lot about the third young lady before, but they were all about her intelligence, filial piety, good temper and so on. She didn't take it to heart at all. Now she knew that her previous thoughts were very wrong. Concubine Ji might not count for anything, but the third young lady might be her biggest opponent in the second branch. Concubine Bai quietly raised her eyes to look at Jingwan. As a result, her eyes happened to meet with Jingwan's. That pair of eyes was very much like Ye's, faint and without any emotion. However, Concubine Bai felt that her thoughts had been seen clearly by her. She was very frightened and quickly lowered her eyes. Concubine Bai's complexion is not very good. Are you feeling unwell? Why don't we invite a doctor to take a look? No need. Concubine Bai felt that she spoke a little too hastily. Many thanks to the third young lady. This concubine is fine. No need to trouble yourself. Your body is your own. If you endure it and don't say it, you will only suffer. Jingwan saw it clearly. Just now, she subconsciously stroked her belly again. Although she withdrew her hand very quickly, don't ask why she was so sensitive. In her previous life, the woman who intervened in her parents' marriage had a flat belly. She rushed to her mother and said that she was pregnant with her father's child. She didn't believe it, but her mother was sad. At that time, she heard her mother say that a pregnant woman's movements were always very careful, even unconsciously. Mother, call a doctor. He can also take my pulse so that you can rest assured. That's right. Madame Zhang hurriedly said. Luo Rongyan also nodded in agreement. Madame Bai, you don't have to go against Wanwan's good intentions. What could Madame Bai say? No matter what she thought in her heart, she could only bow to Jingwan and thank her profusely. The other people in the room might not feel anything, but Madame Zhang's nanny in charge and Madame Ji's eyes fell on Concubine Bai. They knew very well what kind of person the third young lady was. She would not take the initiative to care for a concubine. Chapter 4. There was a doctor in the Luo mansion, so the doctor came quickly. Because he was a white-haired old doctor, there was no need to avoid arousing suspicion. Separated by a handkerchief, the old doctor carefully took Jingwan's pulse. Because the old madam had already sent someone to inform him to take third young lady's pulse later, knowing that Jingwan was favored, he naturally did not dare to slight her. Third young lady has a good foundation. There is nothing wrong with her body. She will be fine after some rest. In fact, the old doctor was very surprised by Jingwan's health. Even if she looked thin now, she was much stronger than many young ladies. Hearing this, Madame Zhang was finally relieved. Then, under the eyes of a group of people, Concubine Bai braced herself and stretched out her hand to let the doctor take her pulse. In the eyes of others, Jingwan letting the doctor take her pulse could be considered a grace. After all, this doctor came from the Imperial Academy of Medicine. Not to mention a concubine, even a master who didn't have any status in this fu wouldn't be able to invite him. If she dared to say half a word of refusal, she would be seen as unable to differentiate good from bad. Since she could not hide it, she could only face it calmly. After all, she was not very sure. Her period was not very accurate. It was good to confirm it, so that she would not be always on tenterhooks. Thank you for your trouble. After the doctor felt the pulse, he was basically sure. However, he could not make the slightest mistake. He changed his hand and then touched his beard. Congratulations, second master and second madam. This concubine is pregnant. It's about a month and a half. Madame Zhang froze for a moment, then smiled and said, "This is really a joyous occasion. Our second branch hasn't had a child for many years. This child might be a white and chubby boy. Later, I'll tell mother this good news and let her be happy." Then, she asked the nanny in charge to see the doctor out. Luo Rongyan was a little surprised. He was happy, but not much. After all, he had 5 children. Compared to his best friend's family, who prayed to the gods, prayed to Buddha, looked for doctors, and ate all kinds of folk remedies, but still did not have a child, he was definitely considered to have a lot of children. However, the people of the world all paid attention to having more children. Luo Rongyan softened his tone towards Concubine Bai. "Since you are already pregnant, just take good care of him." "Yes." Seeing Luo Rongyan's attitude, Concubine Bai felt shy and happy. It was hard not to be moved by this handsome and elegant man. She was originally an unfavored concubine's daughter and had long given up hope for her husband. When that nominal uncle of hers had sent her away, her heart had been like dead ashes. But after seeing the Luo family's second master, she suddenly felt that the heavens still pitied her. She had done the right thing by trying to conceive this child. Ji Yinyang gritted her teeth in hatred. For so many years, she wanted to be pregnant again, wanted to give birth to a son. Unfortunately, there was no movement at all. Her body was clearly very good, but she couldn't get pregnant. Now, she actually let this slut beat her to it. Seeing that her master, who had always been indifferent to them, valued this slut more, she was about to die of jealousy. Concubine Bai suddenly glanced at Jingwan, who was looking down in silence, and suddenly said, "Today, we have to thank 3rd Mississippi, otherwise, this concubine doesn't know what to do. If this concubine accidentally hurt my master's child, then this concubine can't absolve herself from the blame. I don't know whether 3rd Miss likes a younger brother or a younger sister. Previously, I've always heard that 3rd Miss is a good older sister." Now, she no longer concealed it and rubbed her belly. She touched her belly and looked at Jingwan with a trace of provocation. Jingwan could feel that her mother was truly happy because of Concubine Bai's pregnancy, but there was also a hidden bitterness that even she herself didn't notice. As long as a woman had the slightest bit of admiration for her husband, she would definitely not be indifferent if her husband had a child with another woman. Her mother's heart was filled with her father and was filled with love. She was an unmarried girl. She couldn't talk about having children, so she could only silently comfort her mother, even if the other party didn't know her intentions. Originally, exposing Bai Shi was to give her a warning. But why did this person have to rush forward to court death? Jingwan looked at her and suddenly tilted her head. Her smile was like a flower, the most pure and beautiful. But the words she said couldn't help but make the hearts of those who understood tremble. My father and mother's child, whether it's a younger brother or a younger sister, I like them all. As long as her father didn't side with Bai Shi, it was too easy to keep the child and get rid of the mother. Many of them felt that Bai Shi was a smart person who didn't lack beauty and skills. But how could she become stupid with a child in her belly? Did she really think that she had the capital to step on third Mrs. Head? 10 months of pregnancy, it hasn't even been 2 months. Even if she safely gave birth to a son in the future, so what? Third Miss has a legitimate brother and parents who love her. Even if she marries, she won't rely on you, a son of a concubine. On the contrary, if you win her over, there will be endless benefits. Concubine Ji pulled her handkerchief and sneered. Jealousy was jealousy, but towards concubine Bai, there was some contempt. Master. Concubine Bai seemed to have suffered a great grievance. She looked at Luo Rongyan and was about to cry. That delicate and pitiful appearance made people want to hold her in their arms and pity her. Unfortunately, Luo Rongyan wasn't a person who cared for women most of the time, especially him who didn't understand the twists and turns of the inner courtyard. He felt that Bai Shi's crying was inexplicable. Everything was clearly fine and everyone was happy. Were you looking for bad luck? And the scene was a bit strange. It was related to the eldest daughter, but he was sure that the source was Bai Shi. He wasn't interested in getting to the bottom of it and frowned. Why are you crying? Bai Shi choked and her face turned green and white. Those who didn't like her couldn't help but stifle their laughter. Enough, go back and take care of the child. Don't raise the child into a crying bag. Luo Rongyan stood up and dusted his robes. As the male master of the courtyard with the highest status, when he stood up, the others naturally wouldn't continue to sit. Luo Rongyan looked at Jingwan. It's late. It's time to go to the main courtyard to pay respects to your grandfather. Jingwan nodded in agreement. The nanny in charge returned. She didn't know what happened and only felt that the atmosphere was a bit strange. Because the masters were going to the main courtyard, she didn't say much and respectfully sent them off. Then she looked at the pale Bai Shi. Concubine Bai, you should go back and rest early. Bai Shi had never been treated like this since she entered the Luo family. She gritted her teeth, pinched her handkerchief, and turned to leave. Concubine Ji fanned herself with the handkerchief like a fan and went back to her small courtyard in a carefree manner. Following her was concubine Ping, who had been acting like a block of wood. Luo Rongyan and his wife took the 4 children and a group of servants and majestically went to the main courtyard. Jingwan looked at the Luo residence that wasn't luxurious but was full of elegance. Her thoughts drifted a bit. The Luo family was a scholarly family that had been passed down for 200 or 300 years. Although it couldn't be called an aristocratic family, its reputation wasn't small. The current head of the family, Luo Peishan, was the current Minister of Rights. Although he didn't have as much power as the cabinet ministers or the Minister of Personnel, he was still an important official of the imperial court. In addition, Jingwan's second granduncle was a famous scholar in the last 20 years. He taught countless students and could be said to have students all over the world. However, this granduncle's temper was a bit strange. Not only was he unmarried, he didn't leave behind a single child. Grandfather wanted him to live out his remaining years in the Luo residence, but he flatly refused. It was likely that other than grandfather, no one knew where he was now. However, he had many disciples, so there was no need to worry about him not having anyone to serve him. As for the Minister of Rights, Luo Peishan, Jingwan hadn't seen him that many times. Even if they had lived under the same roof, it was common to not see him for several months. However, in Jingwan's eyes, this person's life could be called a legend. The Luo family's foundation was in Guangyuan Prefecture's Qi Prefecture. Luo Peishan could be said to be full of wisdom. At the age of 20, he was third place in the imperial examinations. At that time, the Luo family wasn't prominent, but it could be said to be full of nobility. When Madame Luo was in her boudoir, she was also doted on. As a result, Luo Peishan was under arrest. Luo Peishan was an ambitious person. He didn't want to rely on his wife's nepotism to stay in the capital. Instead, he asked to be sent out. Madame Luo firmly supported him. No matter how hard it was, she always accompanied him. No matter where he was, Luo Peishan's political achievements were always outstanding. In the capital, with the help of his wife's family, it could be said that he was promoted step by step. Not long after Jingwan was born, after her great-grandparents died one after another, the whole family returned to Qi Prefecture to observe mourning. Grandfather Luo Peishan had been in mourning for almost 6 years. In this treacherous place of officialdom, not to mention 6 years, even 2 or 3 years was very fatal. There was basically no room for a comeback. However, Luo Peishan climbed up and even sat in the position of minister. Jingwan even faintly felt that he might have the ambition to go further. As for Madame Luo, because of her early years of hard work and the injury she suffered when giving birth to a young daughter, she was basically recuperating in Qi Prefecture. Because of her grandfather's high position, the others gradually entered the capital. It wasn't until 3 years ago that, other than Madame Luo, Jingwan, and Jingwan's fourth uncle's family, the rest of Luo Peishan's branch all entered the capital. At that time, Jingwan stayed. Other than Madame Luo's expectations, she also liked Qi Prefecture very much. Because Guangyuan Prefecture's Qi Prefecture was in the south, and she was also a southerner in her previous life. Third sister. Chapter 5. Since the old madam had come to the capital, the dinner on the first night was naturally set in the main courtyard, and the whole family gathered together. Therefore, it was not strange to meet the third branch who were also going to the main courtyard at this time. Luo Peishan had 4 sons and 3 daughters in total. Only 1 son and 1 daughter were born of concubines. The son was Jingwan's third uncle, Luo Romping. His wife, Mrs. Lu, was from the count's family and was a descendant of one of the 4 dukes and 9 marquises who had followed the Emperor Taizu. The Qi Yuan dynasty had been established for nearly 100 years. The Emperor Taizu was a commoner, and the people who followed him came from all walks of life, from aristocratic families to the nobles of the previous dynasty. Because the latter followed him from the beginning and were loyal to him, it was difficult for the latter to win the emperor's trust even if the latter used all their wealth to help him in the future. There were 4 dukes and 9 marquises, and the 3 dukes and 5 marquises, which was extremely glorious. Unfortunately, the 3 dukes and 5 marquises at that time were as prestigious as they were now. Although they still had descendants and more or less had a title of nobility, so what? The title of nobility was just a nice-sounding title. Inside, it was not as good as a small official of the 4th or 5th rank. For example, Mrs. Lu's family used to be a duke at the beginning, but now it was just a count. The iron scroll bestowed by the Emperor Taizu was also taken away and destroyed by Mrs. Lu's father. It was impossible to get it back, let alone restore its original glory. As for the other 3 dukes and 4 marquises, they were either from aristocratic families or from the previous dynasty. Because of their own profound foundation, even in the past 100 years, they had fought with the 3 dukes and 5 marquises and experienced several bloody battles for the throne. But they were never defeated like the 3 dukes and 5 marquises. There were even one or two families that rose up and were extremely noble in the current Qi Yuan dynasty. Third sister seems to have recovered. Grandmother should be relieved. The one who spoke was the legitimate daughter of the third branch, Jingwan's fourth cousin, Luo Jingying. She was the same age as Jingwan, but only 1 day younger. Because they were the closest in age, it was inevitable that they would be compared with each other. In the beginning, in the eyes of others, the fourth young lady was inferior to the third young lady in every aspect. But because she had been criticized too much, some seeds were planted in her heart at that time. Gradually, she realized that even her grandmother liked her elder sister who was 1 day older than her and treated her coldly. She became more and more jealous and competitive. She must have what Jingwan had, and she must be better. She must know what Jingwan knew, and she must be better. She must learn what Jingwan didn't know. She only had one purpose, which was to suppress Jingwan and show others who was better and more worthy of love. Even if Jingwan had a small body, she was an adult on the inside. She was an adult who had experienced the accumulation of hardships. How could she argue with a little girl? Sometimes, she would even tease her with interest. She was so ambitious and was really a good child. But as she grew older, her thoughts became more and more unbearable, exuding a rotten smell. As long as she didn't cross Jingwan's bottom line, Jingwan was generally too lazy to pay attention to her. And this disregard made Luo Jingying even angrier. It was simply a vicious cycle. After 3 years of peace, this fly began to buzz in her ears again. Considering the occasion, Jingwan didn't pick her ears. Third uncle, third aunt. Jingwan took the lead and bowed graciously. Hello, second sister. Luo Jingqiang was the eldest concubine-born daughter of the third branch. She was the second of the sisters. She was already engaged and would be married in 2 months. On the surface, she didn't have a sense of existence, just like Luo Jingying's shadow. In fact, Jingwan sometimes felt that this cousin was very interesting. Luo Jingqiang hurriedly avoided half of her body and only received half of the greeting. She bit her lip and greeted Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang before returning the greeting. Jingwan ignored Luo Jingying and greeted the elders first. Not only did it show Luo Jingying's rudeness, but it also showed Luo Rongping and Madame Lu's disrespect. After all, Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang were the elder brother and sister-in-law. Luo Jingqiang's behavior was simply adding fuel to the fire. Not only were they embarrassed, but they were also ashamed. Hello, second brother, second sister-in-law. Luo Rongyan faintly responded and said a few polite words. He had never had a good impression of this younger concubine-born brother of his who was always working hard. Luo Rongping also secretly hated him. His official position was obviously higher than his brother's, but he never received any attention from him. It was the same for his father. This second brother of his didn't do anything all day long, but no matter how hard he worked, not only did he not receive any praise, sometimes he was even scolded badly. Even in front of the servants, he was not given any face. Therefore, not only did Jingwan and Luo Jingying not get along, but the second branch and the third branch were also harmonious on the surface. In fact, as the only concubine-born son, Luo Rongping's relationship with the other 3 brothers was not good. Luo Rongyan took the lead and walked forward. When they were close, Jingwan faintly looked at Luo Jingying. The other party's eyes were as if dipped in poison. She raised her eyebrows. She was afraid that in the future, she would not be peaceful. Fourth sister has improved in the past 3 years. At least she was not like a barrel of gunpowder, immediately exploding. Luo Jingying suddenly restrained her expression and smiled like a flower. She affectionately took a few steps forward and held Jingwan's arm. Third sister, in the past, I was young and ignorant. I did some things that I shouldn't have done. You are an adult and magnanimous person, so don't lower yourself to my level. In the future, I won't be the same as before. Jingwan's temperament was not fake, but she was also someone who made a clear distinction between love and hate. Luo Jingying's behavior was disgusting. Even if others said that she did not love her sister, she would not put up a pretense of being tolerant and magnanimous. Although sometimes she would be at a disadvantage if she refused to compromise, so what? She brushed away Luo Jingying's hand. Young. You are indeed young. You are younger than me by a whole day. Oh, I shouldn't say that. When you were born, third aunt read your fortune. She said that your horoscope was weak and that you were cursed by me. During those years in Qi and Fu, you always celebrated your birthday first. Who knows how many people thought that you were the older sister? Luo Jingying's eyes immediately reddened. Third sister, are you unwilling to forgive me? Pretending to be weak. Pretending to be a little white flower. Who did she learn this from? In comparison, she found that Luo Jingying, who was like a firecracker in the past, was much too cute. Jingwan did not want to say another word to her. She quickened her pace to catch up with her parents. Luo Rongping was also very angry, but he did not dare to lose his temper in front of Luo Rongyan. He also could not say anything about Jingwan. After all, it was a small matter between his daughter and niece. As an elder, he naturally could not say anything. He glanced at Luo Jingying and became even angrier. Useless. He flung his sleeves and quickly walked to the main courtyard. Mother. Luo Jingying angrily and aggrievedly pulled on the Lu matriarch's hand. This is the capital, not a place where the Luo family in Qi and Fu can cover half the sky. With Luo Jingwan's temperament, she could be like a fish in water in Qi and Fu because of the old madam's protection. In the capital, it is very different. There are as many nobles as there are clouds. Just wait and see. One day, she will suffer a great loss. My good daughter will have the opportunity to trample her into the mud. She thought about how she, the dignified daughter of a duke who had founded a country, had fallen to the point of marrying a concubine's son. If this husband had treated her better, it would have been fine. Unfortunately, she had long been disappointed in this man. Her heart had turned cold. Now, her children were the only thing she cared about. Those who were above her children all deserved to die. Just wait, just wait. Luo Jingying's anger turned into a smile. Mother is right. When she first came to the capital, she also suffered a lot. But now, it was different. Not only did she learn how to deal with people, but she also made great progress in poetry, music, painting, and other aspects. Luo Jingwan was completely ignorant in these aspects. Moreover, she had an advantage that Luo Jingwan absolutely did not have in a short time. She had a lot of close friends. If she used them well, they would definitely be a great weapon to deal with Luo Jingwan. Then, she glanced at Luo Jingqiang next to her and sneered, "Second sister has learned how to live off one person and help the other. You are so close to the second branch. You might as well go to the second branch." The Lu matriarch looked at Luo Jingqiang with cold eyes. "Go back and copy the women's commandments and women's principles 100 times. Tell Yurinyang to copy them as well. Then copy 100 scrolls of scriptures to pray for the old madam. It will be considered her merit." Luo Jingqiang nodded submissively. As for what she thought in her heart, she could only ask herself. When old madam saw Jingwan, she saw that her face had regained its color. She also just learned about the doctor's diagnosis. She was finally relieved. At the same time, she naturally knew that concubine Bai was pregnant, but she didn't take it seriously. After everyone saluted, she put aside her grandchildren who were born in the capital in the past 3 years and let Jingwan sit next to her. This kind of undisguised doting hurt many people's eyes. Some people originally wanted to say a few words of jealousy, but they didn't open their mouth. If they didn't restrain themselves, then others stopped them. Old Madam was a kind old lady, but they also knew that she was wise, decisive, and tenacious. In this family, if you were disliked by the old madam, then your life will be very difficult. Soon, all the people of the several branches arrived. Chapter 6. Everyone in the room hurriedly got up and went out to greet him. Luo Peishan had always respected his wife. After returning from the yamen, he didn't go straight to the study as usual. Instead, he took his eldest son back to the main courtyard. After sending his eldest son away, the husband and wife talked. After all, they were an old married couple. Naturally, they wouldn't be as clingy as young people. They roughly understood each other's situation for the past 3 years and then went about their own business. Luo Shangshu first admonished his sons as usual, especially his fourth son who served his mother in qi and fu. Originally, without his father watching over him, the carefree and happy fourth master Luo Rongwei became like a quail. Not only did he have to reflect on himself 3 times a day, he also asked his sons to be aware of the day's big and small matters. He didn't ask them to be impartial, but to know the stakes. After admonishing his sons, it was time to teach his grandsons. Only the eldest 3, from the age of 16, would be by his side whenever he had time. Not to mention the eldest legitimate son of the eldest branch, Luo Jingde, Jingwan's elder brother from the second branch, Luo Jingbua, and the eldest concubine-born son of the third branch, Luo Jingming. Some of Luo Peishan's motives were clear as day. After entering the room, everyone sat down. Jingwan then knelt in front of Luo Peishan and kowtowed 3 times without hesitation. Luo Peishan took a sip of tea and said faintly, "You may rise." Jingwan didn't feel her grandfather's coldness at all. This person had strong ambitions, but he didn't do anything to climb up. He had principles and a bottom line. He had strict requirements for his children and grandchildren. For example, Luo Rongyan, who had no interest in officialdom, he didn't force him and let him be a small official in the Ministry of Revenue. If one day Luo Rongyan suddenly wanted to pursue fame and fortune, he probably wouldn't hesitate to support him. As for the marriage of the younger generation, it couldn't be better if it could be friendship and benefit. If it couldn't be, he wouldn't push the younger generation into a pit of fire for the sake of benefits unless he brought the family to a dead end. Jingwan might not be able to get close to such a person, but she also wouldn't have bad feelings. Over the past 10 years, her understanding of this world had deepened day by day. She was quite lucky to be born into the Luo family. Luo Peishan was in a high position and had his own power and influence. Even though he was born in a scholarly family and was tainted with a deep scholarly aura, which made his power and influence not oppressive, because he was strict with his children, all of them were in awe of him and rarely got close to him. As for the grandchildren, they were seriously influenced by their father, which made the distant relatives a joke. Luo Peishan might have some regrets, but he didn't care. However, Jingwan didn't know that in Luo Peishan's eyes, she didn't have a sense of existence. It wasn't only because of Madame Luo's care, but also because Luo Peishan found that Jingwan was different from the rest in the few interactions he had with her. She respected him and was fearless. Others might not be able to feel it, but he felt it very clearly and deeply. Moreover, from the occasional words of his wife, he knew that this granddaughter of his was kind, but also had a clear distinction between love and hate. Sometimes she was soft-hearted. It would be better to say that she cherished life and cherished everyone's life. Even if it was a servant who had made a mistake, she wouldn't easily kill him. In addition, she had principles and a bottom line. When it was time to be decisive, she would never be sloppy. She was originally talented, but she didn't show her edge. Sometimes, it was hard to say that she was not a man. It could be seen that the grandfather and granddaughter's evaluation of each other was very similar. It just happened to fulfill a sentence that Madame Luo once said, among the grandchildren, in fact, the third daughter was the most similar to the master. This similarity was not in appearance, but in temperament. The reason why Madame Luo doted on Jingwan so much was not without the factor of loving the house and its crow. The third daughter has done very well these past few years. Jingwan was a little surprised by Luo Peishan's praise. She chuckled and said, "I don't deserve grandfather's praise. It's what a granddaughter should do." Luo Peishan nodded slightly. "I remember that you like flowers and plants. A few days ago, I got a pot of mo lawn. I asked someone to move it to your courtyard." This time, the surprise almost appeared on his face. However, Jingwan was also happy to get a good thing. "Thank you, grandfather, for the reward." If Madame Luo's doting on Jingwan only made some people feel indignant and some people deeply jealous, then Luo Peishan's action made even the children and grandchildren he valued and carefully cultivated have ripples in their hearts. They couldn't help but guess whether there was a deep meaning behind the head of the family, Luo Shangshu. Perhaps some people thought that it was for the sake of Luo Peishan's old wife's face that he expressed his gratitude to this granddaughter. However, those who really understood Luo Peishan knew that it was not only that. If it was only for the sake of his old wife, he could give other things. There were many things that girls could use and like. No matter what it was, as long as he said a word, there would naturally be someone to do it properly. Luo Peishan was actually a love-struck fool. Because he always restrained himself and didn't want this weakness to be used by others, very few people knew about this hobby of his. That pot of mo lawn was not obtained casually. It cost him 3 precious calligraphy and paintings. He also owed the eldest son a favor. With the help of an old friend, he exchanged it from someone else. If he didn't really like it, he would never do such a big thing. Previously in the study, they saw him carefully tending to it. That appearance of his was really extremely fond of it. Now, he just casually gave it to a granddaughter? These children and grandchildren didn't even dare to have the slightest bit of desire. Luo Peishan admired Jingwan's calmness. Even if she didn't know about it, looking at the other people's reactions, he was really a little disappointed. Let's set the table. Because everyone had their own thoughts, there were only a few people who were able to calmly enjoy this reunion banquet. After the meal, Luo Peishan didn't ask them to stay. On the road, they could still restrain themselves. However, when they arrived at their own territory, why is she Luo Jingwan? Why? What's so good about her that everyone likes her? A series of smashing sounds and all kinds of vicious curses were heard. Not to mention the torn handkerchief. Perhaps it was because their mouths were covered. Soft voices of dissuasion sounded from the people around them. After all, if this matter was spread to Luo Shangshu's ears, wouldn't they be unable to bear the consequences? Luo Rongyan left Jingwan and Luo Jingbua at Falling Plum House and sent the other 3 concubine-born children away. Luo Rongyan, who had always been calm and collected, frowned. Luo Jingbua also had a dignified expression. Although Madame Zhang didn't understand what was going on, she knew that something was wrong. She looked at her husband and son with some apprehension. Luo Rongyan first comforted Madame Zhang and let her rest first. It wasn't that he didn't want to tell her. Even if he told her, it would only make one more person worry. When he came out, he saw Jingwan holding a teacup and looking indifferent. Wan. She was already on the verge of burning with anxiety. Her daughter's behavior was really infuriating. What's wrong? Jingwan looked at Luo Rongyan with some doubts. Luo Rongyan sent all the servants away. The pot of mo lawn that your grandfather gave you, is there a problem with the flower? It shouldn't be, right? It's not a problem with the flower. Luo Rongyan didn't know what to say. That was why he hated those things in the officialdom the most. Father, let me say it. Luo Jingbo saw that his father was in a difficult position and explained to Jingwan about his grandfather's love for flowers. Jingwan was silent for a moment. So, you think that grandfather is using this method to appease or compensate me? Because he wants to use me in exchange for benefits. The biggest role of a girl raised in a boudoir is nothing more than a marriage alliance. Grandfather is thinking highly of her for me. Luo Jingbo looked at his younger sister, admiring her intelligence. She was able to understand everything with just a hint. However, when he saw that she didn't even frown when she talked about her marriage, he felt that it was both familiar and unfamiliar. Little sis, things aren't that simple. An ordinary marriage alliance is a good thing for the two surnames. Naturally, grandfather won't feel guilty. The princes would come of age one by one, and they would be conferred the title of king. They could also start to dream about that position. The worst result would be that I would be given to one of those people. The eldest sister of the Luo family is married. The second sister is already engaged. Moreover, she is born of a concubine and her status is not enough. The fourth sister is younger than me by a day and her status is also a bit lower. After thinking about it, I am the most suitable. However, because of father's official position, my status is also reduced. At most, I can only be a concubine. Jingwan said unhurriedly. Luo Rongyan didn't know about officialdom, but he hated it and didn't want to know. A few years ago, he knew that his daughter wasn't as simple as she appeared to be. It was true that she didn't say anything, but once she did, he was shocked. He didn't know whether to reprimand her for not being reserved or feel sorry for her for seeing things so clearly. Wan. Chapter 7. Luo Jingbo wanted to step forward and knock her on the head. At this time, she still didn't take it seriously. Luo Rongyan sometimes felt helpless towards this daughter of his. Father and brother think too much. The pot of mo lawn that grandfather gave had no other intentions. Jingwan said very firmly. It's probably just because I did a good job in chief and prefecture, and I like flowers and plants. How do you know? Luo Jingbo asked in return. Jingwan hooked the corner of her mouth. Because I believe in grandfather's character, and I believe in his wisdom. Grandfather relied more on himself to achieve his current status. In the early years, he could have climbed higher and faster. If that was the case, he might not only be the Minister of Rights, but he didn't. The three aunts married in the capital. Father and brother should know better than me what kind of people they married. They were all son-in-law personally selected by grandfather. Now that the situation is unclear, how could grandfather easily choose a side? With his wisdom, he wouldn't be easily coerced. Moreover, if I were those people, I wouldn't choose to drag grandfather down. After all, grandfather is in charge of the Ministry of Rights. All kinds of sacrifices, celebrations, birthdays, and even funerals follow the same etiquette. As long as it's justifiable in the end, it doesn't have much to do with other things. Grandfather isn't someone who doesn't know how to be flexible. In addition, second granduncle is a scholar and has a great influence among scholars. If he's provoked, he would rather die than live in dishonor. Even if the final winner sits in that high position, he would be criticized in speech and in writing. How many emperors don't cherish their reputation and don't want to leave their names in history? It's not like they want to kill all the scholars in the world, right? At this point, Jingwan suddenly felt that her grandfather didn't want to advance further, but deliberately won the position of Minister of Rights. Because this position wasn't too conspicuous, but it also wouldn't be casually stepped on by others. In the current situation, it couldn't be better. After listening to Jingwan's words, it seemed to be the case. The two people looked at Jingwan with a different gaze again. Finally, Luo Jingbue said rather complicatedly, "If grandfather heard your words, he would probably be very happy. He would even feel that it's a pity that you're not a man. There's nothing to be regretful about. I'm very satisfied that I'm a girl. If father is still worried, why don't you ask first uncle tomorrow? As the next patriarch of the Luo family, he cares more about this matter than you do. If grandfather really has such thoughts, he won't hide it from first uncle no matter who it is." Luo Rongyan nodded. However, he would not go to his elder brother. Instead, he directly asked his father without beating around the bush. "Father, it's getting late. I'll go back first." After Luo Rongyan agrees, Jingwan takes the etiquette instructor and Qing Zhu back to her small courtyard, begonia elegant house, with the little girl holding the lamp. After walking around a few times to digest the food, the pot of mo lan was sent to her. Jingwan thought that it was just an orchid named mo lan. The color of the flower changed a lot. She didn't expect that it was a real mo lan. There was only one bud. Because it was about to bloom, the petals were faintly visible. It was dark and lustrous, looking extraordinarily beautiful. Only then did Jingwan know that she got a rare treasure, the treasure of treasures. She admired and played with it for a long time. Others persuaded her for a long time before she reluctantly put it down. Then the head nanny fiddled with it to do maintenance for her. The head nanny was specially found by her grandmother in the capital 2 years ago. At first, she was just an etiquette instructor. Her surname was Gong, and she was released from the palace. She was proficient in pharmacology and various maintenance methods. This maintenance was not medicine, but a variety of balanced meals and very complicated massage techniques. Because there were no side effects, and she didn't lack time now, she patiently let Nanny Gong torment her. Because she was used to it, it also helped her sleep. So every night, she would warm up her body. Because it was too comfortable, Jingwan unknowingly fell asleep. Nanny Gong and Jingwan's nanny asked the maidservants to help her to the bed to sleep. In the dead of night, there seemed to be a slight noise outside the elegant house. It was like a nightingale flapping its wings. It quickly returned to silence and didn't wake anyone up. In Jin Wangfu, a shadow guard knocked on the door of the study. Because Li Hongyuan rested in the study most of the time, even if the light was turned off, because the secret letter in his hand was special, the master had already ordered that it should be given to him at any time. Soon, the light was turned on. The shadow guard got permission and pushed the door in. Li Hongyuan was wearing the softest linen underwear. His chest was mostly open, and his black hair was scattered. He sat on the edge of the bed with his head down. It was indescribably charming and gentle. The shadow guard only felt that the atmosphere was terrifyingly gloomy. It wasn't cold, but it made people shiver. The master's sleep had never been very good. As long as there was a little noise, he would wake up. If he didn't sleep well, his temper would become irritable. If the people around him weren't careful, they would probably suffer. But at this time, he would generally endure. As long as the letter didn't have any terrible content, their lives wouldn't be in danger. And that Miss Luo had already safely arrived at the Luo residence. Naturally, nothing terrible would happen. Li Hongyuan received the letter. The letter actually recorded the matter caused by Mo Lan in detail, especially the words about Jingwan. Li Hongyuan laughed softly. Sure enough, his Wan had always been intelligent and had an exquisite heart. That old fox, Luo Peishan, didn't end up well in his previous life. Even when Jingwan was expelled from the Luo family and drew a clear line between them, he didn't touch the Luo family. It was because Jingwan had sullied herself in order to get rid of the Luo family. In the end, she didn't manage to keep her life. The Luo family had secretly helped her a lot, and even if it was exposed, it would bring disaster to the entire family. Luo Peishan could be considered to have done his best for her. Even though he was still dissatisfied, Jingwan had done everything possible to protect the Luo family. Thus, he suppressed his anger and fulfilled her wish. Tell people to pay attention. If any of this prince's brothers want to pull Luo Peishan to their side, think of a way to stop them. Wan's idea wasn't wrong, but it didn't stop people from being treacherous. Moreover, the position of Minister of Rights wasn't enough. He could always change his position. Even though he had experienced a lifetime, he still had to take precautions. After all, some things had changed. Especially when it came to Wan's matters, there couldn't be the slightest mistake. In this life, he would change everything. He would protect her well under his wings. He wouldn't let her tire herself out, wouldn't let her suffer, and definitely wouldn't let her lose her life. As long as she lived a carefree life, raised flowers, played with cats and dogs, and when she was bored, she could play with others. Even if she didn't wear the phoenix robe, she would still be the most noble woman in the world. Yes. The shadow guard replied. Do it neatly. Don't implicate this prince or the Luo family. Do you understand? Master, don't worry. The people who were doing things naturally thought of the master's orders. Now that the master had deliberately brought it up, they had to put in 120% of their effort and make it 120% perfect. Go. Tell Fu Yunting to come see this prince tomorrow. Yes. The shadow guard observed a moment of silence for Wu Anho's heir in his heart. He hoped that this time, he wouldn't be dealt with too miserably by the master. The next day, when Jingwan went to pay respects to the old madam, Luo Shangshu naturally went to the imperial court. Except for her younger brother, the others were all women. She also saw a person that she didn't see yesterday. It was her eldest cousin brother's wife, little Wang, who was pregnant. This woman was eldest aunt's niece. She wasn't a particularly beautiful woman, but she was very pleasant to look at. She was dignified and beautiful, and had very high self-restraint. The Wang family was an aristocratic family. Although eldest aunt's branch was a side branch, the children and grandchildren were quite capable and couldn't be underestimated. Greetings to eldest sister-in-law. Jingwan curtsied. Quickly get up. Little Wang stepped forward and held Jingwan's hand. We're all family. There's no need to be so polite. She carefully looked at Jingwan and turned to Wang with a smile. No wonder mother always talks about third sister. Grandmother also dotes on her. I also like this little sister very much. Isn't that so? This third girl has been very lovable since she was young. If it wasn't for your second aunt's reluctance, I would have taken her back to our eldest branch to raise. Wang smiled. If eldest sister-in-law really likes her, it's okay to let you raise this girl for a while. Zhang didn't care. This caused everyone to laugh. Old Madame Luo pointed at everyone. You're not young anymore, but you're still so mischievous. Don't fight with me. Wan will be raised by me. When you're free, you can come and tease her. Grandmother, do you think I'm a kitten, a dog, or a sparrow? Jingwan said angrily. Grandmother, you think third sister is your sweetheart. Luo Jingying covered her mouth and laughed. The scene paused for a moment. Old Madame Luo glanced at Luo Jingying lightly. Wan is indeed my sweetheart. Without Wan, I would have become a pile of yellow soil. Chapter 8. These words were too serious. All these years, Jingwan had indeed spent a lot of effort on old Madame's health, but she was not important enough to determine old Madame's life and death. For a moment, the scene was terrifyingly quiet. Luo Jingying's face was even paler. Grandmother is talking nonsense. There are so many people who are filial to serve you. Even without Wan, you can live a long life. You little girl. The old madam pointed at her from a distance and finally revealed a kind smile. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Grandmother, you don't want to live a long life. You still have to choose a good husband for third sister, watch her get married, watch her give birth to children, and even watch her become a grandmother. If you can't be sure that she is happy and healthy, how can you be at ease, right? Little Wang Shi said with a smile. Sister-in-law, what nonsense are you talking about? Jingwan lowered her head shyly. She also didn't want to be like this, but when in Rome, do as the Romans do. If she appeared too magnanimous in front of everyone, it was inevitable that she would be criticized again. The buzzing noise made her head hurt. Unfortunately, she didn't have the ability to blush anytime and anywhere, so she could only pretend. Jingda's wife, your words hit the bottom of my heart. She looked at Jingwan happily. Jingwan was once again teased by everyone. Seeing that she was really shy, she let her go. Little Wang Shi took off a jade bracelet on her wrist and put it on Jingwan. Yesterday, the little guy in your stomach was very noisy, so I couldn't see third sister. Little sister, take this little toy and play with it. I hope you don't mind. Yesterday, she did come to pay respects to old madam and couldn't even eat dinner. It was crystal clear and full of water, with a touch of red floating in the light blue. If this thing was in her previous life, it would cost at least a few 100,000. Here, it was more than 1,000 taels. If she still disliked it, she would be struck by lightning. Didn't she see that some people were jealous and couldn't wait to snatch it? Sister-in-law, what are you saying? Little sister can't wait to like such a good thing. This sister-in-law, who she met for the first time, seemed to be too good to her. The reason was probably because of that pot of Mo-lan. Old mistress had already given her countless good things. With this addition, she could accept it calmly. When old madam was in chi and manner, she was used to peace and quiet. Although she enjoyed the joy of family reunion, she was old after all. Even if she had nursed her health well these past few years, she still felt tired after such a noisy scene. In addition, although she did not suffer as much as Jingwan, she was still tired and would not be able to recover in a short period of time. Only 2 or 3 people were left to have breakfast with her. Naturally, Jingwan couldn't be left out. For the past 3 years, Jingwan had been living in old madam's warm room. It could be said that they ate and lived together every day. Originally, old madam's heart felt a little empty after living separately. She definitely wouldn't let Jingwan go back for breakfast. As the eldest daughter-in-law, Wang Shi was supposed to serve her mother-in-law at all times. The old madam couldn't bear for the couple to be separated, so she had her follow her eldest son to the capital. At this time, she naturally had to serve by his side. Just like last night, old madam still let her sit down and eat with her. She had never been an evil mother-in-law towards her daughter-in-law. After quietly eating, old madam then asked about little Wang Shi's condition. It seems that her pregnancy isn't very stable. What's wrong? What did the doctor say? After all, she was the first in the 4th generation. How could old madam not care? Wang Shi glanced at Jingwan. Seeing that old madam had no intention of letting her leave, she could only say, this daughter-in-law doesn't know the specifics. Her and Jingda's health is good. I called the gynecologist in the Imperial Hospital to take a look, but he couldn't say anything. If the doctor didn't say that as long as they are healthy, they should move around more. This daughter-in-law wouldn't dare to let them go out. Old madam frowned, tell the servants to serve them more carefully. As for Jingda, his wife's pregnancy is a difficult time. If you have time, spend more time with her. Don't be greedy and fool around with the Tongfang and make his wife sad. Also, the eldest son hasn't been born yet. The Tongfang must not stop giving birth. Regarding the children of concubines, the old madam treated her husband and her children and grandchildren differently. She would not want to kill all of her husband's concubines and reward them to her children and grandchildren. She knew and understood the hardships of women. Mother, don't worry. This daughter-in-law has carefully selected the servants to serve them. As for Jingde, this daughter-in-law has already told him. With her mother-in-law as an example, she naturally wouldn't be an evil mother-in-law. Moreover, that was her niece, the apple of her brother's eye. Before she got married, her brother also doted on her in every possible way. If you lack good medicinal herbs, tell me. I still have some in my private storehouse. Thank you, mother. I don't lack those things. You can go do your work. Wang Shi bowed and left. But before she left, she couldn't help but look at Jingwan, who was sitting quietly by the side. Grandmother, don't worry. In 3 or 4 months, you will definitely be able to hold a white and chubby great-grandchild. And I believe Wanwan's words. She lovingly patted her hand. Jingwan chuckled. Both men and women were healthy, but they didn't have good fertility. She couldn't help but wonder if it was caused by close relatives. But what she knew was that the offspring of close relatives had a higher chance of being born with congenital diseases. Most of them were intellectual problems, but she wasn't very clear about other things. In this world, it was normal for close relatives to marry, so she couldn't say much. A mama next to her said, "Old madam's words are reasonable. Third young lady has a golden mouth and jade teeth. If she says it's good, then it's good. Moreover, third young lady has always been healthy. Perhaps because of her aunt, the child and eldest young mistress's belly will also be healthy. You old thing, don't talk nonsense. If these words are spread out, if someone comes to Wan because of this and there are bad consequences, won't it implicate Wan?" Jingwan was really touched and felt warm that old madam was always considerate of her. She couldn't help but think of her grandmother in her previous life. She was very knowledgeable and cultured, and she was open-minded by nature. She raised such a scum of a son. After he suffered retribution and died, the good family completely declined. Although she was sad, she was still open-minded and her heart was bright. Perhaps she even regretted that she didn't teach her son well, so she spared no effort to teach and guide her only granddaughter. If she wasn't deeply influenced by her grandmother, perhaps she would have been blinded by hatred long ago. Even if she was lucky enough to live another life, in this world, she was afraid that because of her father's concubines and concubines' children, she would be disliked and abandoned. How could she live so freely? Look at this servant's mouth, I deserve to be hit. She slapped her own mouth several times. Grandmother, quickly tell Mama Wu to stop hitting me. It's not a big deal. If she hurts me, it'll be an eyesore for her to stay by grandmother's side to serve, won't it? Jingwan pleaded in a delicate voice. Enough, didn't you hear what Wanwan said? Old madam waved her hand. Jingwan couldn't be blamed for acting coquettishly. This was purely grandmother's bad taste. She only thought that Jingwan's personality was a little tough. Only a little girl who knew how to act coquettishly would be able to eat sweets. Moreover, 9 out of 10 men liked weak women. So no matter what, after marriage, when it was time to be soft, she must be soft and not go against her husband. After being taught fiercely, Jingwan was encouraged by old madam. Every time Jingwan acted coquettishly, she could achieve her goal faster. When it came to acting coquettishly, Jingwan was now more and more skilled at it. That's right, her grandmother was not a rigid person. In the past year, from time to time, she talked to Jingwan about how husband and wife should get along. She didn't avoid the topic of children from her. She just asked her to be careful in front of outsiders. So when she talked about little Wang Shi, she didn't ask her to avoid it. She always hoped that she could be better. And her grandmother also knew very well that some things that unmarried girls shouldn't talk about, she wouldn't be shy when facing them. When she pretended, her grandmother was happy to see her make a fool of herself. Because Jingwan had just arrived in the capital, she didn't rush to go to school. She wanted to rest for 2 more days, so she stayed with old madam. Nearly 2 hours later, a servant came to report, "Old madam, eldest Missy is back. My eldest daughter is back. Quickly invite her in." Old madam looked particularly happy. Chapter 9. When Jingwan was born, the old madam's eldest daughter had already been married. She had only seen this eldest aunt, Luo Ronghue, once or twice. That was because she married in the capital, while Jingwan was born in Chief and Prefecture. Due to the distance between them, it wasn't easy to walk around. When Luo Ronghue and her entourage came in, Jingwan clearly felt that although the woman in the lead was trying her best to restrain herself, she still appeared to be in a hurry. "Mother!" She almost fell to her knees in front of the old madam. The old madam hugged her. My child," the old madam was, after all, a person who had experienced storms and waves. Although her eyes were a little wet, she didn't cry. Seeing that it was about time, Jingwan stepped forward to comfort her. Perhaps because she felt a little embarrassed crying in front of the younger generation, Luo Ronghue followed the old madam's servants to wash her face and reapply her makeup. When she appeared again, her posture was that of a graceful noblewoman. Because Luo Ronghue's husband was busy, he would only come to visit the old madam during the next break. Accompanying her was her only daughter, Yuan Xiao, who was currently talking to Jingwan. Luo Ronghue's life had been relatively smooth. The only problem was that she didn't have children. After 4 or 5 years of marriage, she was only pregnant with a daughter. After that, there was no more news. She didn't know how much medicine she took, how many gods she prayed to, and how much money she gave to the temple, but the result was still the same. She had no choice but to let her husband take in concubines. However, although some of the concubines gave birth, they were all daughters. This number was also not satisfactory. Others said that she was vicious, that she was a hen that didn't lay eggs and didn't let others have children. She was so wrong that she wanted to die. Now, there was another child at home. The doctor said that it was most likely a son. Luo Ronghue held Jingwan's hand for a while and gave her a greeting gift. Then, the old madam let Jingwan take her cousin to her small courtyard to play. The mother and daughter wanted to have a private talk, so Jingwan was prepared to take the initiative to leave. Outside the main courtyard, the two of them met other people. Presumably, they had heard that Luo Ronghue had returned and had come to greet him. After greeting third aunt, Jingwan looked at her stepsister. "Aren't you in class now? Why are you here?" Luo Jingyu was much quieter than her biological younger sister. She was caught playing truant by her elder sister. She blushed and stammered, not knowing what to say. Third sister, third elder sister, fourth elder sister said that since eldest aunt has returned, as juniors, we should come and pay our respects. Luo Jingwei looked at Jingwan, her face bright and innocent. She didn't know if she was just telling the truth or if she had other intentions. Jingwan nodded slightly. They had come quickly. She said, "Let's go back to class. Grandmother and aunt are talking right now, so we shouldn't disturb them. I think second aunt and third aunt will come back later. Let's pay our respects together later." After hearing Jingwan's words, Luo Jingying urged the girls to play truant, including the 6 to 8 girls. In any case, except for Luo Jingying herself, the others all turned back. Jingwan curtsied to the old Madame Lu and left. Yuan Chao Chao, who was next to her, saw this and was a little surprised, but she also followed suit. Mother, look at Luo Jingwan. She doesn't even put you in her eyes. Luo Jingying was so angry that her eyes turned red. The old Madame Lu pulled her handkerchief, her eyes dark. Let's go back to class. Mother. Be good. We really didn't come at the right time. Because her brother-in-law was from the Ministry of Personnel, and her father-in-law refused to support her husband, she was so focused on pleasing her sister-in-law that she forgot about everything else. Being reminded by her niece was like being slapped in the face. Especially with her 4 sisters-in-law, she was the only one standing here. She didn't know how the servants would laugh at her. That Luo Jingwan was not only Er's nemesis, but also the third branch's nemesis. Luo Jingying followed beside the old Madame Lu and said in a low voice, Mother, is the beeswax bracelet on Luo Jingwan's wrist given by eldest aunt? Yes. The old Madame Lu replied absent-mindedly. Luo Jingying was jealous that Jingwan got something good again. All kinds of vicious curses were thrown at her. She had no manners at all. When the old Madame Lu came back to her senses, she took a deep look at her daughter. Her daughter's talent and appearance were outstanding, but sometimes she had to admit that she really couldn't compare to Luo Jingwan. Mother has told you many times that there are some things that you can't say. Mother, I'm just telling you. I won't say anything outside. The old Madame Lu was helpless. Why didn't her daughter understand what she meant? Wan, your begonia house is really beautiful. The path was paved with cobblestones, and there was even a small stream with koi fish and clusters of water lilies. A small bridge was set up, and all kinds of flowers and trees decorated the small courtyard in a picturesque disorder. There were even spider plants hanging under the corridor. It was the season of blooming, and the fragrance of the flowers filled the air. It was all arranged by my mother. It was arranged according to her preferences in Qi and Fu. Yuan Chao Chao was led to the swing under the flower rack. Mama Gong quickly brought people to bring tea and snacks, and the tea was the flower tea she made herself. Leisurely swinging on the swing, eating the exquisite and delicious tea, and drinking the fragrant and sweet flower tea, nothing more beautiful could be imagined. Wan, you really know how to enjoy. When I go back, I'll let my mother decorate my small courtyard like this. Also, give me some of your flower tea. Compared to other teas, your tea is the most to my taste. Okay, I'll also give you the recipe. You can make it yourself. Wan, why are you so nice? Yuan Chao Chao gave Jingwan a big smile. I'm embarrassed. It's just a recipe. It's not worth anything. Cousin, you don't have to be polite with me. Yuan Chao Chao found that she and Jingwan were very compatible. She was obviously younger than her, but she felt that she was the one being taken care of. However, she didn't dislike it. Instead, she enjoyed it. There were many cousins in the Luo family, but there was no one around her age who could talk to her. Wan, you and 4th cousin, we were born one day after the other. It's inevitable that we would quarrel and have a little conflict. Jingwan said casually. Seeing Jingwan like this, Yuan Chao Chao suddenly covered her mouth and giggled. She didn't ask any more questions. Anyway, Luo Jingying was short-sighted and used to putting on an act. Every time she came to the Luo family, she would come over and didn't know how to look at people's faces. It was annoying. As Jingwan expected, in less than an hour, the other 2 aunts came back one after the other. Although the second aunt was born of a concubine, because her birth mother died when she was born, she had been raised by Madame Luo. Compared to the other 2 biological daughters, she was actually very close to Madame Luo because she lacked a status. However, Jingwan didn't know whether this kind of closeness came from the heart or on the surface, so she didn't make any guesses. Not long after, people came to Jingwan's place. In addition, Madame Luo allowed the students to finish school early, so there were even more people in Haitang House. It was very lively. This was the first time for everyone, including the Luo sisters, to come to this small courtyard. They were all full of praise. Perhaps it was because Madame Lu said something to Luo Jingying, or perhaps there were outsiders here, but Luo Jingying didn't do anything out of line. She was a qualified little master for once. That's right, she smiled sweetly and became the master of Haitang House. Jingwan didn't care at all. She talked to these cousins who she had never seen before and got to know them. After entering the capital, she had to start to integrate into this circle. This was a good start. Cousin Wan, in 2 days, Miss Sun will be holding a flower banquet. Why don't you go with her? The eldest daughter of the second aunt, Chang Lingshan, looked at Jingwan with a smile. It was said that birds of a feather flock together. Jingwan didn't think that the girl who had a close relationship with Luo Jingying had a good temperament. We'll talk about it when the time comes. If Cousin Wan is worried about the post, I can help. It's not about the post. Then Cousin Wan doesn't like Miss Sun's banquet? She asked carefully, but there was an inexplicable excitement in the depths of her eyes. She always wanted to dig a hole for others. Sure enough, she hated it the most. Did they really think that she didn't know who Miss Sun was? Chapter 10. She may go to the Qin family with grandmother. Madame Luo's maiden name was Qin. It was an extremely powerful and irrefutable reason, and also a reason that made people jealous and resentful. Luo Jingying restrained herself from losing her composure, and Chang Lingshan's smile froze. Obviously, her tricks were above Luo Jingying, and she quickly recovered. I see. But it doesn't matter. Next time, Cousin Wan will definitely receive an invitation from Miss Sunday. Miss Sun is a very modest person. If she sees you, she will definitely like you. With such a familiar and slightly intimate tone, she was showing her closeness to Miss Sunday. Before coming to the capital, Jingwan had specially learned about the noble women and noble girls in the capital, and her temporary teacher was Mama Gong. Although Madame Luo had given her some pointers, she definitely didn't know that Jingwan's understanding of the people in the capital was even better than many people who were born and raised in the capital. This Miss Sun, Sun Yijia, was born noble, and was very outstanding in all aspects. Even those princesses and princesses who were not favored would not only give in when facing her, but would also sometimes curry favor with her in order to better survive. Sun Yijia's temper might not be bad, but she was definitely not modest. Instead, she was used to being high and mighty, like the moon surrounded by stars. What kind of person was Jiang Lingshan? Her mother was just a concubine's daughter from the minister's mansion of the Ministry of Rights, and her father was just a fourth-rank official. The difference between their statuses was too great. This was not a place where everyone was equal. As a master, it was simply a big joke to call a maid sister or become good friends. Of course, it was not impossible for people with a huge difference in status to become good friends, but the probability was too low. Obviously, Chang Lingshan did not have this luck, and Sun Yijia was not a person who would lower herself to be noble. Chang Lingshan was just a small follower who tried her best to squeeze to Sun Yijia's side, and she was the lowest kind. Because there were too many people who wanted to curry favor with Sun Yijia, she always had to be careful not to be pushed out, and at the same time, she had to carefully flatter that person. He couldn't go overboard and provoke that person's disgust, nor could he restrain himself too much to the point that he didn't have a sense of existence. Not to mention that he was mentally and physically exhausted, it was certain that he wouldn't have a good time. For her to be able to occupy a position by Sun Yijia's side, she was indeed capable. For example, Luo Jingying also wanted to be in that circle, but she didn't have the ability. Jingwan was not interested in exposing her. After all, everyone had their own way of survival. Either they were willing or forced to make a choice. She had no grudge against Chang Lingshan for the time being, so there was no need for her to make an enemy out of him. What would happen in the future? The lunch banquet was naturally very lively. Although old Madame Luo was a little tired, she was still in good spirits. Because Jingwan had just entered the capital and had a very high position in the old madame's heart, it was not surprising that the first meeting gifts she received were all good things, adding another sum to her little treasury. Sure enough, as Jingwan expected, the old madame sent someone to send a letter to the Qin family. They replied very quickly, but the time was one day earlier than Sun Yijia's flower banquet. Not only would Jingwan go to the Qin family's trip, but her fourth uncle's family would also go with them. In this way, the flower banquet might take a turn for the better. After all, there were people watching her now. If they didn't make trouble for her, she would feel strange. Although she hated all kinds of scheming and fighting, she had to fight back when trouble came to her. Jingwan finally packed up the things that she prepared for her brothers and sisters and asked people to send them. As for whether they liked it or not, her brothers and sisters would care about it. The others had nothing to do with her. As the saying goes, don't worry about scarcity, but worry about uneven distribution. The same thing naturally wouldn't be everyone's favorite. It was inevitable that they would scold something. Even if she tried her best to find out what they liked in advance, people like Luo Jingying would find fault with it because it was different from other people's or was not that valuable. They would think that you were insulting them. After settling this matter, Jingwan brought some people to trim the flowers and trees in her small courtyard. Other than the fact that there were some places that she was not satisfied with, it was also because the people who came to her small courtyard today were so despicable that they ruined a lot of her flowers and made the overall appearance not as beautiful. Jingwan's personal servants were all brought over from Qi and Fu, so they were used to her personally taking care of the flowers and trees. What they had to do was to carry a tray, carry a watering can, and reach out to help when she needed it. In fact, they all felt that their young lady was very capable. Whether it was the flowers placed indoors or the flowers and trees in the courtyard, even if they had been learning how to arrange them from their young lady, the result was still not as beautiful as her young lady's. For the same thing, the young lady only needed to reach out her jade hands and casually fiddle with it a few times, and it would appear even more beautiful. A young maidservant came in from outside the courtyard and whispered a few words in Nurse Gong's ear. After Nurse Gong nodded, the young maidservant retreated. Nurse Gong took 2 steps forward. Young lady, master sent someone to invite you to the front study. Jingwan paused slightly and put the scissors and flowers in her hands on a tray at the side. Qing Zhu hurriedly asked someone to bring warm water and went forward to wash her hands. After washing, Jingwan returned to her room to change her clothes. She still preferred plain clothes and led Qing Zhu and Qing Mei out of the small courtyard. Outside the courtyard, a manservant raised his head and straightened his back. However, his eyes were downcast and he didn't look around. Little brother, sorry to keep you waiting. That manservant hurriedly bowed. Hello, third young lady. This little one didn't wait long. And then let's go. Jingwan nodded. Jingwan wasn't completely familiar with the Luo family, especially the front courtyard. It could be said that she knew nothing about it. Naturally, she had to rely on the manservant to lead the way. That manservant thought that Jingwan would ask something. After all, a young lady in the back courtyard was suddenly called by the head of the family. Moreover, it was the front study that they might not be able to step into in their lifetime. Anyone would be a little nervous. They would either be afraid that they had made a big mistake or be excited that they had been favored. However, not only did the third young lady not ask a single word, she was also very calm. She wasn't pretending to be calm, but was truly calm. Master, the third young lady is here. Come in. Jingwan left the two maidservants outside and went in alone. In the study, in addition to the head of the family, her father and her eldest uncle were also present. Jingwan roughly knew that she had most likely been cheated by her father. Other people cheated their fathers, but why was it the opposite when it came to her? Should she do something that cheated her father to take revenge on this father who cheated her daughter? Jingwan greeted the three people without any hesitation. Then, she stood with her eyes lowered and her nose lowered. For Luo Rongyan, last night, he had already seen that his daughter was somewhat different from the rest. Moreover, he had never cared about these things and was somewhat bored as he sat on the side. Grandfather Luo Peishan and Uncle Luo Rongwen were different. They used a scrutinizing gaze to size her up for a moment. Luo Rongwen's heart was indescribably complicated. As for Luo Peishan, his thoughts were a little strange. He had never thought of himself as a good person, but he was also not a pure pursuer of interests and power. Everything he did, no one in the family refuted. They took it for granted, and he himself was accustomed to it. However, when he heard Erzi's words, he suddenly felt that he was trusted, understood, and recognized. It seemed that compared to other people's indifference, this feeling made him happy. It was like a person who was moving forward alone and found that in fact, he was not alone. In a place that he did not know, other people had seen his efforts and thought that he had done well. This kind of mentality was indeed a little strange, especially when the person who gave him this kind of feeling was his own granddaughter. Luo Peishan suppressed all these emotions. This was not the reason why he had called this granddaughter over. Third young lady, it is not a bad thing for a person to be a little clear-headed, but it is not necessarily a good thing to be too clear-headed, especially the women in the inner courtyard. Because they see things too clearly, it is easy to be sad, and absolute rationality will lose a lot of fun. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.